Hey guys, Brent Hull Build Show, talking today about fasteners and how I use them. That's nails and screws, and how I use them to date houses. Come join me today in the Build Show. You might see, if we are looking at, the 1881 house, the 1870s house, I am using nails as a great dating tool. It ends up being something that is a very quick way of figuring out what's original, what isn't. Because essentially, if you look at the history of nails, there was distinct changes that took place, and we know when those changes took place. We know when the technology came, and therefore it becomes this time stamp that's stamped into these different jobs that help us know, well, this couldn't have been added at this place, this had to be added at this place. So what is the dating? What is that time range that goes on there? The very first type of nails were what's called a hand wrought nail. Literally, it was a cottage industry. You could actually buy a nail stock and then you can make your own nails. That's what a lot of families did. Nails were very expensive pre-1820, before the steam power, before industrialization, and the steam powered mills began to make what's called cut nails. So basically all nails before 1820 are handmade. And so if you've ever heard those stories where they burned down the house to get the nails, I don't know if that's true. I have seen it written into diaries and books like that where they've actually done that, or they've actually said that. It still seems suspect to me when a nail costs, a penny today, why that would happen. But it speaks to the importance of nails and how those things are put together. It also speaks to the fact that how they used to construct things back then, they didn't really need nails like we would need nails today. The next big jump that happens is with industrialization is what's called a cut nail. So think that hand wrought nail was made from wrought iron, where you actually hammer and hand hammer the head onto the nail. With a cut nail, you basically have a big sheet, and just pretend this piece of glass is this big sheet, and there's a shear that comes down and cuts these nails. And so they cut it, it would flip, they'd cut it again, it was cutting at an angle, and you would end up with a square nail. Because that stock was square, it ends up looking, in section, the nail is like this, right? It's actually a kind of a rectangle. But, it would look like, something like this, because it was the way it was cut from those sheets. And so they were pretty easy to identify. We see a lot of those in that 1870 and 1880 houses we're working on right now. And in fact, those become this great tool for helping us figure things out, because the next change that happens in 1890, what's called wire nails. Now, they're called wire nails because they're made from these huge spools of wire. The wire would run through a machine, clamp it, cut it, and then pound it down, and that's what makes the head. So if you look at a 16 penny nail, you'll see some kind of lines right near the top of the head. That's where the machine gripped it so they could hammer that steel down and make the head of the nail. So those are called wire nails, and that happens after 1890. The next advancement that happens really after the wire nails is after 1950. Again, remember 1950 is that crucial time when we start to do production building. The nail gun comes out, okay? The early nail guns were big and heavy and bulky, but I've seen some of them. I had a carpenter, one of my first carpenters I hired actually had some. He was an older guy. These early nail guns basically shot very similar to the wire nails that you shoot today, or that they made in the 1890s, 1900s. And then nail guns began to change so that today, okay, we have like these finish nails. This is a 15 gauge finish nail, right? It's very compact. It's put into a little sleeve like this. The thing comes down and knocks it off. These are glued together, okay? And the technology here is pretty awesome because they actually put glue on these so that the glue heats up when it goes into the wood, helps it stick better, right? So there's crazy things here. And then this is a 23 gauge brad nail, okay, which almost looks like you're shooting in the wire of a paper clip or something, or even less, maybe a safety pin, and you're shooting that in. Very sharp, very small, and this advancement that happens 1970, 1980 with these advancements in these guns really changed the way we're building. I don't know if you remember in that 1881 house we were looking at, the panels underneath the windows, we pulled it off and there was a crown molding there meant to replicate a panel mold, and it was held in with nail gun nails. And so you can almost start dating these. Okay, this was done after 1980, after 1990. As you look at, you know, the finished product in the historic house, we know immediately when that was available, when that was done, when that big restoration happened. I think it was 84, 86, something like that happened. So the advancements in nails, right? You can actually look at them and actually start dating buildings. The same is true with screws. Screws were mostly handmade until the industrial period, the Industrial Revolution, and you really don't see screws in architectural millwork unless it's more like furniture type things. They were those traditional wood screws, kind of tapered with a very heavy groove cut into them, right? As opposed to the drywall screws, the sharp pointed screws, which were originally used for steel framing, but all of a sudden they came onto the job site and they changed the way we build. Most people don't build with wood nails today, they would build with screws. That window right there from the 1920s is held together, the jambs held together with nails. When we build our windows, the jambs are held together with screws. They're an excellent fastener. Here's some newer screw heads. You got some with the huge pans holding cabinets to the wall. You got finish head screws, which are for, you know, trim and holding on screws so you don't have the head showing. They've got the star pattern bits. They've got self-drilling, self-starting screws. I mean, the advancements are crazy in the last 10 years, how fasteners have changed, and I think for the better. I mean, our architectural millwork holds up better, holds together better because of advancement in fastening. Really, I like understanding fasteners because it helps my sleuthing brain, right? It helps me as I go into an historic house and start to try to date things. If that 1880s house was held together, had trim with wire nails in it, I would know that that trim was put on later, right? We saw it with the panel mold on the outside of that house. I don't know if you remember when we did that English room and we unpacked it. We saw a lot of screws in there. We saw some nails. We were actually able to date additions and subtractions and things by the types of fasteners. So fasteners to me are a fascinating advancement, a clear technological change that takes place that helps us date. So if you're into historic sleuthing, if you're into historic houses, that's really a great way to understand when it was built, how it was built, why it was built, all that kind of great stuff. Hey, if you want more great content, be sure to join my Patreon page, Patreon Passion for Craft. At the journeyman level, you get access to my library, and it's a curated selection of my library. I'm sharing information about how to be a master builder, how to be a master craftsman, studying things from the past, studying cabinetry, studying windows, studying fasteners sometimes. So a lot of great information. Hope you guys will check it out. I'm Brent Hull. Thanks for watching.